who knows where it leads you when you respond to things that really excite you.
Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single week who's unleashing creativity to grow their business. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct. You can email me at max@hippodirect.com if you would like help starting a podcast of your own. This is episode 21, and today's guest is Emily Griffith. Emily is a friend from college. We were in the Kelley School of Business together. And what I love about Emily's story is it's pretty different than your typical business school grad. Emily is the founder of Lil Bucks and is leading the buckwheat revolution in the USA. She's also a digital nomad and world traveler. So she has some amazing stories, everything spanning from water slides to surfing with sharks. So buckle up, put on your wetsuit, and enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with a super cool edition of the Wild Business Growth Podcast presented by Hippo Direct. We are here with Emily Griffith, Emmy Griff, the founder of Lil Bucks, and also digital freelancer, world traveler, and I have to say, the coolest surfer chick since Reggie Rocket and Rocket Power.
Oh my gosh, you're calling me a surfer chick? That's the most flattery of all. Thank you so much.
So humble. She's recording this podcast from the waves, catching some gnarly waves right now.
Yeah.
But Emily, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you? And I'm unfortunately not on waves. I'm in Chicago right now and it's snowing. So literally the opposite. But other than that, great.
Perfect. Cool. We may have to get the sprinklers going, freeze them up, and then hit some waves down the street.
Yeah,
but besides
100%.
that. But yeah, I'm great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your surf schedule to join. But really, this is really cool to connect. We were chatting earlier. Me, you, and our friend John Savick connected and met each other senior year when our house is paired for Little Five. Shout out Indiana. So it's pretty crazy to. I don't think any of us knew at the time that we would be connecting again a few years later in podcast form.
Yeah, in podcast form.
Yes,
exactly. Who would have thought?
The best way to connect. But anyway, for anybody that's not familiar with your story yet, Emily, do you mind taking a little bit to kind of introduce yourself, say where you came from, what you've been up to, and what is your main focus right now? Shout out Lil Bucks.
There'll definitely be a Lil Bucks shout out. But yeah, so as you said, I went to Indiana with you. I went to the Kelley School of Business, which you might not have known. I also almost majored in art instead of business.
Oh, I knew you're a fantastic artist, but I did not.
Yeah, try to be. But I've always just felt like I've had this creative side, so that's always something I've been practicing. But ended up staying in the business school, convinced myself to. And instead of getting your standard awesome corporate job at one of the many places a lot of my peers were getting jobs at, like Target, Dick's Sporting Goods, like all those major consulting agencies, I, for some reason, felt like that couldn't be for me. So I had to do the cool business job and go work at an ad agency. It's like you still get to wear jeans to work. So that was kind of amazing.
That's the main selling point for a lot of people.
Yeah, which like looking back is pretty funny, but it's just what felt right to me. And it's obviously worked out the way it's supposed to. And yeah, so I started at a small agency in Chicago, digital agency under WPP, one of the major marketing holding companies. So it was cool because I was under this like huge agency umbrella, had all the big agency resources, working with the biggest brands, but had worked on a small digital team, which was kind of the best of both worlds for me. And then that company got absorbed by another WPP agency, Burst and Marsteller, which is a major PR agency and a really great company, huge clients, all of that. But for me, I was like, I'm not a PR person. And so despite staying there for 2 additional years after being absorbed into the company, I was not like thrilled with it, but at the same time got to work on some of the best brands in the country. Like I spent most of my days on Hormel Foods, so like Spam, the canned meat, Hormel Foods,
Oh my God.
chili, Skippy peanut butter, and then also worked on other brands like Accenture, the Coca-Cola company, Bank of America. So even though I was like being a little baby about not wanting to work at a big PR agency, yeah, like, okay, maybe that wasn't my calling at the moment, but I had incredible experience.
Right.
Then that took me, so while I was kind of looking for the next thing after being there for almost 3 years, I went down to Australia where I studied abroad just to visit friends. And while I'd studied abroad there, I did have an internship at a big digital agency there. So I had some good connections there in Sydney, Australia. And while I was back visiting, one of my old managers was like, hey, you should meet up with this agency. They're, interested in having someone like you join the team, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not moving to Australia, but look, fine, I'll meet up for coffee. And
It's kind of a long commute from Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, my mom will literally kill me. But,
Well, glad she hasn't yet.
Yeah, spoiler alert, still alive. But mom did nearly kill me because in that coffee interview, or not interview, just a coffee meeting, I pretty much walked out convinced that I wanted to work with this company, had an offer. Just kind of blew my mind. I walked out of the meeting and was like, oh, I guess I'm moving to Australia.
Guess so. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Might as well just hop on the next flight.
Yeah. So when I told my mom that, I came back because I was just on a trip there and obviously needed to go back, pick up some things, quit my job in Chicago, tell my mom, etc. So when I came back to the States and told my mom at 11 p.m. while she was doing laundry, and I was home visiting, it didn't go over well. But she since has accepted it and obviously worked out. So I went over there in 2016 to work with this company, and I was there for about a year. I had an amazing experience, made some of my best friends, also got to deepen friendships with Aussie friends I already had there from studying abroad, and ultimately made the discovery that led me to start Lil Bucks, which I can talk about what the heck Lil Bucks are in a bit. But
you can say hell, by the way, too. We can.
Yeah.
We're an explicit podcast. So swear your damn heart out.
Oh, okay, there you go. But yeah, so while I was in Australia, while I did love, my life in Sydney, as I say, I was living my best life. I was surfing. Finally, I never really got good at surfing in Chicago or Indiana because there's not many waves.
Understandable.
Yeah. So, but finally getting to do that, live that beach lifestyle, it's just totally different from like the hustle and bustle of living in Chicago or New York, and just the laid back Aussie sense of humor, etc. But there were some things, even though it was a dream, there were some things that, were weird to me. Like there was absolutely no remote working culture, which was something that I did get to do at Burson Marsteller in the States. While working on those big brands, I could still travel all over the country, visit friends, work from home if I needed to. We still had an office culture, but, working remotely was becoming a bigger and bigger thing every year, and I became accustomed to it. That's maybe sounds very millennial of me, but it's true.
Well, and I know this as well. We are millennials, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So, millennials get made fun of, but at the end of the day, if you look at describing what I do, yeah, it's pretty millennial. But yes, and so Australia actually has, and this is obviously not every country or every company in Australia, but in general, a much more conservative workforce, which is surprising just because they're so laid back. And I don't know, it's Australia.
It is. It's definitely Australia.
Yeah, it's cool. It's chill. But there were a lot of rules that just were weird to me. Like there were some things, you never brought your laptop home with you. You always took an hour lunch, which was so amazing.
Right.
I brought my laptop home every day when I was at agencies in Chicago. But I kind of preferred, I'd rather have to work at weird hours sometimes, but be able to do whatever I want. And so ultimately that was kind of driving me to come home. A romantic relationship with my current boyfriend drove me to come back after doing a long distance for a year. And this idea of being obsessed with Lil Bucks and needing to start it ASAP. So I came back to the US a year later in 2017 and moved in with my boyfriend here in Chicago under the conditions that I leave in the winter and do some digital nomading. So I've worked from Bali, Nicaragua, Central America in general, Mexico, going back to work from Australia for I don't know how many weeks yet this February, which I'm very excited about. So being able to do that's been, surviving Chicago winters is a lot easier. And then I launched Lil Bucks end of April 28th. Yeah. End of last April.
Wow. So, holy cow. So you've done maybe a few things over the past few years, but that's
an adventure.
That's really cool. It's all, I don't know if you view it as one adventure or several different adventures. This new baby of Lil Bucks is very, very exciting. So I want to dive into that a little bit more. You mentioned that the idea first came about in Australia. Can you dive a little bit more into that, into where Lil Bucks was conceived?
Yeah, definitely. And that's what's just so funny about how this path has worked out because, I left that coffee meeting like, sure, I'm moving to Australia for this marketing job. And then I randomly discovered this Lil Bucks idea. And now I'm obsessively, trying to grow this brand in the food and wellness industry.
Right.
Yeah. So while I was in Australia, like I said, living my best life.
You're such a millennial.
I know. Eastern suburbs of Sydney. It's like gorgeous beaches. I'm at Bondi Beach surfing. And after that, getting an acai bowl at one of my favorite smoothie shops. Mm-hmm. And they had the option to get sprouted buckwheat instead of granola in your acai bowl, which I thought was, as a big acai bowl fan, was really interesting. I'd been kind of trying to get off granola myself. Not all granolas are bad, but the ones that I really liked are pretty high in sugar and calories and weren't offering as much as other foods in terms of nutrition.
Right.
So I was like, sure, whatever, I'll try this sprouted buckwheat, whatever that is. And obviously became obsessed. I loved like the texture of it in the cold smoothie. Turns out there's a ton of protein and fiber and tons of antioxidants in sprouted buckwheat. Mm-hmm. I just totally freaked out. I was like, what is this? This is going to be a part of my everyday, like overnight oats. It's going to be topped in the overnight oats in the morning. So I'm like slamming on the table right now because I'm really excited about all the ways you can use sprouted buckwheat. But yeah, putting on my yogurt, smoothies, I put it in my salad. It was just something I found a vegan brand in Australia who made just sprouted buckwheat. And so I was buying just big bags of it to use up, pretty much every day. But it was like a lot of awesome things in Australia. It was expensive. Like a pound bag of sprouted buckwheat was like, I don't know, $16 or something. And so I was like, probably should learn how to make this on my own, which turns out it's kind of a pain, but it's not the hardest thing in the world.
I thought it was number one.
Yeah.
But so how did that idea come from something that you experienced and really liked to something that, hey, I'm actually going to launch this brand myself? Was it actually because you didn't want to spend so much money on the Australian, on the ones that you were getting over there? You make it your own, or what more went into that?
Yeah, I didn't want to spend all this money because my lifestyle in Australia on all these acai bowls was very expensive.
Right.
So, and then, I started kind of experimenting with flavors because I was like, well, if you could have like a chocolate granola, why can't you have chocolate sprouted buckwheat, etc. I'm starting to it's just something I'm doing. But then as I was starting to think about moving back to the States and kind of just had that moment while at the beach, of course, it's like, I like almost look back on this moment as like out of a movie or something, but kind of had this thought like, can you even, like, I'm going to have to get a dehydrator when I'm back in the US to make sprouted buckwheat, but surely like someone's making it that I can buy it from. And surely it's a bit cheaper because it's the States. Mm-hmm. And I Google it and just kind of an initial Google, I'm like, there's nothing. No one's doing this. And I'm like, what? Like, this is so healthy and so delicious. It's like so nutrient packed. I mean, there's like your select, like super intense health bloggers that make it at home and have recipes for doing that. But from what I could find, I was like, I don't think anyone's doing this. And I was like skipping home from the beach, like so stoked that like I was going to be making, this was happening. Like, I think I always kind of secretly wanted like some sort of entrepreneurial venture and didn't know what it was going to be. And then the second the idea came, it was just immediate obsession.
Are you still skipping?
Yeah,
Are you
definitely.
Still skipping all the time?
Skipping all the way to the kitchen. And it's funny because I started talking about it with my family and my boyfriend and friends, and they're like, all right, Emily must be losing her mind. Like talking about this sprouted buckwheat. Like, what?
They didn't know that they were going to fall in love with buckwheat as much as you were.
Exactly.
But that's such a cool story. I was actually envisioning a movie, so we'll make some calls. We'll get some funding together to get this to Hollywood. But
yeah,
it really was like a movie moment, your Google moment where you're sitting on the beach and come up with that and realize that, hey, no one else is doing that. But you really, it's a really fun story. And what it came down to is you found something that is basically a white space in the market and a gap in the market, at least in the U.S. People aren't doing that. So it's just awesome that you've gone full speed ahead with this. And I have to say, you know, from the website and everything and your branding, it's got a really, really fun vibe to it. And the packaging is amazing.
Oh, thank you. I actually have a new packaging coming out soon that will be a little more legit, with like the branding will be the same, but just kind of even building on that more and have like barcodes and all that so I can be more legit.
You recently, well, you're pretty legit. So, seems legit.
Oh, it is.
You're on Amazon Prime now, right?
Yeah, I am. We just launched it, and I say it is still a single woman business, but I feel like
you're so humble.
Yeah, it's just, you know, what people do. But yeah, we just launched on Amazon 3 weeks ago.
Congrats.
I launched the cacao flavor on there and already sold out and had to send more in, which was sweet. And then selling a lot faster than I thought. And obviously you can just reach so many more people just because it takes off that barrier of the shipping. And I feel like once people get on Amazon Prime, like money isn't real. Like the second my brand was on Amazon Prime, I mean, it's been on my website and, you know, in stores, but the second it's on Amazon, oh, sure. What's $16?
Right. It is. It's crazy to think that 20 years ago, people survived without Amazon. And now it's like, you can't, especially if you're living in a city like you do and like I do, you can't go into an apartment complex without seeing like 78 Amazon boxes sitting out there.
Oh my gosh. Especially around this past Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
I live in a high rise and I literally took a picture, like 200, like a little high rise city in our apartment of Amazon boxes. It was incredible.
Wow. Yeah. They're taking over the world, but I think Lil Bucks is going to take over the world first. So you're in good hands.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So for anybody that hasn't tried out your line yet, your brand yet, what's the simplest way that you would describe it? Why buckwheat as opposed to some other alternatives out there?
Yeah, definitely. So I say Lil Bucks is your high protein superfood crunch, often used as a replacement to granola or cereal. And it's made from sprouted buckwheat. I have 3 flavors. The original, which is nice and sweet and savory dishes like salads and soups and chilies. And then I have 2 other flavors on the sweeter side, matcha, which has a lot of vanilla in it as well. And then cacao, which you'll also taste cinnamon and maca root powder in. Mm-hmm. And the benefit of eating these in general, just eating these, buckwheat is one of the most antioxidant dense foods there is. It has 10 times more antioxidants than quinoa, naturally occurring complete amino acid protein, 6 grams a serving, 5 grams of fiber. It also has 25% of your magnesium, which is a really hot nutrient right now. It's really good for, it's very trendy.
Magnesium's so hot right now.
Yeah, magnesium. That's what they all say on the cover of Vogue. But yeah, I mean, you have to eat a pound of salad to get 25% of your daily value of magnesium, or you could eat a serving of Lil Bucks, and that's great for things like sleep, anxiety, brain function. And that's actually something I discovered later on. And I was just really excited about the protein and the antioxidants when I got into this whole buckwheat thing.
Right. As like an ultimate power lifter. Yeah.
Yeah, the list goes on. Buckwheat's incredibly, and on top of that, and on top of being incredibly healthy, it's a great crop for soil, for soil health. So it actually brings a lot of nitrogen. And this is something I've learned about as I've kind of dove into this, because sustainable food's always been important to me personally. And I was just kind of wondering, where does buckwheat fit into that? Does it fit into it? Am I promoting something that's maybe not a good idea for the US? But actually, I was very pleased to discover that buckwheat's an amazing crop for soil, and farmers would actually like to. I literally talked to farmers that would actually like to grow it more, but there's just not a demand for it to make sense for them to grow it. But it's one of the fastest growing crops. So for a farmer, maybe if they had a bad season, they might, in August, they could plant buckwheat, which flowers in 70 to 90 days and still make money off their crops. And then also it's just a good rotating crop, meaning that instead of growing the same thing over and over and depleting the nutrition in the soil, alternating your crops with buckwheat helps bring more nutrients back into the soil. So ultimately, I'd like to increase the demand for buckwheat so we can actually get more farmers growing it, especially here in the Midwest, because it's a good crop in cold weather. Sorry, I'm going on a huge thing about buckwheat. I'm really excited about it.
No, well, I would hope you're passionate about buckwheat. It'd be a real bummer if you weren't.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. So for you, it's more than just your brand. It's about the crop and the versatility. Is that a word? Versatility?
Yeah, I think versatility. Yeah.
Cool. Versatility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We can tell I went to Kelly as well.
We're not English majors.
Exactly. But it's awesome that you are passionate about buckwheat as a whole and not even just your brand. There's more to it. There's a bigger story. I mean, I'm just amazed by how many benefits there are of buckwheat. But you mentioned a lot of antioxidants. What if I were to tell you I'm pro-oxidant? What are you going to...
I've never heard that joke before.
I'm just kidding. This is why I started this podcast, is so I could have as many dad jokes as possible in a medium for them.
Yeah, this is perfect. I love that.
In terms of your journey, I would imagine Amazon was a huge, huge win for you. And I know you've had many other wins, whether be it small or big along the way. What about the other side of that? What do you think so far in its early stages? What do you think has been the biggest challenge that you're dealing or have dealt with Lil Bucks?
Oh man, there are so many unexpected challenges, especially in the food world along the way. Which also deciding to start a business in the food industry is one of the most exciting industries to be in, but also one of the most challenging.
Oh yeah.
That extra step of, inventory management, like making sure you're not killing people with the food you give them.
I would imagine that's a big one. Yeah. Well, yeah, you have the whole Food and Drug Administration and to make sure that healthy.
It's
so
amazing.
Yeah, probably not much stress for you.
No, yeah. But the launch, honestly, I mean, just as surviving that, I generally have a really high tolerance for stress, but I will say starting a food brand is wild. But I will say the biggest challenge that I have, which is a plus and a minus, I think, and this is what is so exciting, I'm the only sprouted buckwheat brand in the country right now. And while sprouted buckwheat's totally taken off in Australia and the UK, and it's really popular in health stores, and you'll see it served on dishes at cafes, like it'll be sprinkled on avocado toast, salads, used as an ingredient, other granolas and energy balls. It's not really a thing here. So that's a huge opportunity for me to take hold of that. But at the same time, I'm having to educate, and, I get a lot of skepticism on like, what are these weird seeds? And like, also people think that they're actually gluten-free. People are like, oh, I can't eat that. It's wheat. And like, it's actually a fruit seed. So there's a lot of education around sprouted buckwheat. Why does it need to be sprouted? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just finding ways, especially without having that big advertising budget or whatever, to be creative and get it out there and get people to fall in love with this new thing. And then on top of that, actually, I've gotten really good advice in the food industry. And this could apply to many other industries, but when you're trying to get someone to buy your food product, you're asking them to fire something else. For me, I want you to buy Lil Bucks sprouted buckwheat. So for you, what are you going to, you could just buy this and add it to your routine, and that's great. But oftentimes you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to use this instead of cereal. I'm going to use this instead of like my croutons and my salad. So I just have to think about those creative ways to get you to, actually want to use this instead of something else.
Right. Yeah.
That can be hard when you're ingrained. And I love my like daily granola. I've been eating it for 5 years.
Right. Clever. Very good there with the ingrained.
Yeah.
Plan that one out for weeks. But yeah, for me, it'd probably be stop having so many appletinis. It's really good. I'm sure it's a major challenge, but you're on a great pace, and I'm sure keep this pace up. We'll rename it the United States of Buckwheat. So you're getting there.
Oh, that'd be great.
The United States of Lil Bucks. Last question for this section. How big do you want to grow it? Do you have any overarching major goals? You don't need to share financial goals or anything like that, but anything that is kind of like your North Star or your shining star, if you will?
Yeah, I really want this to play, my brand Lil Bucks, to play with all the big brands I love in Whole Foods, like some really hot ones right now. And I've actually even gotten to work with some of their marketing managers here in Chicago, but like Health Aid Kombucha, Vital Proteins, Collagen, RX Bar. They're based in Chicago. They're huge. They're owned by Kellogg's now.
Oh, we actually spoke about that. Was someone, a previous guest, Tom Casano. That was his Wild Business Shout of the Week, because their ads are everywhere here still, but they're a really cool company too.
Oh yeah. And they work on me.
They work.
But yeah, just being one of those household brands in the wellness world, like, okay, maybe it's not going to be, because, at the end of the day, the U.S. is extremely diverse. I understand not everyone's like this obsessive organic health world that I've lived in, and I live and breathe that. But in that world, I want to be a big brand. So essentially, to the Whole Foods customers of the world or of the U.S., I want this to be something they're like, yeah, Lil Bucks. They put that in their cart.
Awesome. Well, and shout out Whole Foods. Hit up your girl, Emily.
Yeah, exactly. We're working on that. Once I have the new packaging, I really want to get aggressive there. But so without that, I've been focusing a lot on my digital funnels and Amazon sales, which is my background. So
right. I can't wait to see the new packaging. And
yeah, my samples are coming today. It's like Christmas today. I'll probably run downstairs and see if they're here.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, we can cut this off early if you get it and then come back on.
Can you imagine getting a 100% open rate on your next marketing message? Well, you can with extra large postcards that are impossible to ignore. Hippo Direct can help you find the perfect list of proven direct mail responders. We can even help lay out and design the postcard for you. Check us out at hippodirect.com.
Speaking of digital, let's transition a little bit here into sort of your experience in the digital world as a digital freelancer or a digital nomad. I wasn't sure if you went by that term officially or not, but you said it yourself, so I think now it's official. Digital nomad, digital nomad, and traveling the world, because you've traveled and lived in so many different cool places around the world. First question there is, how are you able to launch a brand and manage other brands while you're traveling the world? Are there any tools that you use, or what's important for you in making that happen while you see so much cool shit around the world?
Yeah, it's funny because it's such a privilege to be able to travel and work at the same time. And a lot of people really didn't understand that actually sometimes I was working more than I would be at home while on the road. But, you do what you got to do to be able to see these places.
Right.
And you keep in mind, even if I worked a 60-hour week, if I'm already in Bali, all those other hours of the week are already spent in this exotic place, exploring it rather than traveling there. So it's just kind of a way. I think oftentimes people think you're like vacationing 3 to 4 days a week and just working here and there. But, people buckle down and do their Monday through Friday, and a lot of digital nomads I met even work on the weekends, because a lot of them are entrepreneurs. So they might do like a couple hours here or there. But that's not to say that, for example, when I was at a co-working space in Nicaragua, a few other digital nomad workers and we all had calls at like 1 p.m. and we're like, let's do like a quick water slide session. We like went over to the pool, did some water sliding, and then like back on the call at 1 p.m. So just like those funny things that you get to do. And I think in some ways that keeps you personally motivated, because here in Chicago, sometimes I might work for like 12-hour days and then just like lose my mind. And the next day can't get through like 4 without just being kind of stir crazy. But in Nicaragua, I had no problem sometimes having to do those crazy 4-hour days, because I knew the next day I could get up and go surfing and then get back to work, which surfing's something that helps me stay motivated.
Wow. What do your friends and family think of your lifestyle and sort of this wonderful paradox that is kind of your personality and also what you do in the business world? Because you have sort of this digital nomad and surfer vibe, sort of that aspect and sort of laid back vibe of your personality. But then you also have sort of, you're building this business and helping out other brands, which is very, very, type A, and have to be very disciplined about it. What's your family's and friends' reaction to the way that you live your life and the way that you handle your work?
It's pretty funny. I think especially at first, because of the circles that I've come from and being from the Midwest as well, this is just not a very common path. When I was in Australia, when I went to Bali to work and travel a bit before I came home, that's kind of what inspired me to do this, because I met all these other people doing it who were even a lot of, like, I think I straddle the type A, type B situation.
You're like A and a half.
Yeah, A minus.
Type A minus.
Yeah, or maybe B plus, probably closer to a B plus. But like extreme type A people that you would never think would be like off surfing and working and traveling in Bali. And they were doing it and some were working for big tech companies based in the US. Others are just really successful with their own businesses or freelancing. And it kind of opened me up to being like, oh, this is a thing that's legit that I didn't know about. But when I came back, I'm the one without having those proof points of all these other successful people I met. And I was like, I'm going to do this too. And definitely from my parents, I think a little skepticism and concern, but they're kind of like, all right, you do you, and hope you don't need to call us with asking for help.
Right.
But I think now that, they see some of the work I've done, like they're always excited to hear like, oh, what brands have you been working on? Like, are you actually because I always talk about Lil Bucks, I'm very passionate about it. Like, well, how's your marketing business? And I'm like, yes, there have been a lot of successes in this marketing world. And I tell them about real companies that I'm helping and building websites for. And that's also real. I haven't asked anyone for money, so you can know I'm making money. So I think once they saw that it's a thing that happens, now they're like, it's amazing. And my mom says it's funny because I wouldn't have thought that she would have been excited about what I'm doing, being a digital freelancer, traveling, but she brags about it to her friends, which is kind of cool.
which is a far cry from killing you. So I think you've won that battle.
Yeah, we've come a long way from the total freak out when I said I was going to move to Australia, which to be fair was, not well timed.
And I can imagine that. Well, I'm not a mother, but I can imagine if your kid said, hey, I'm going to move halfway around the world, it could be quite jarring at first. But how about in the Kelly world? So I know, not to give you too big of a head, but I know you're a Kelly scholar, which for anybody that's not from IU is an extremely high honor and a great, which I think there's only 10 Kelly scholars a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 Kelly scholars a year, full ride. There's plenty of benefits that come with it, but it's really, really high honor. And I'm sure, coming from the Kelly world as well, probably the vast majority of my Kelly friends are in corporate jobs. And, there's
same. Yeah.
There's some in the agency world, but there's a lot of corporate and even a smaller percentage are out there starting their own business or as entrepreneurs. What's the reaction from your friends that were Kelly scholars, and sort of, did you feel any sort of pressure or anything to start your career in a certain way? Because it can be a hurdle sometimes doing something that is totally opposite than all your friends are.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's kind of funny how kind of having those pressures of why am I not doing this, and having that scholarship and all the amazing opportunities that come with going to Kelly and being surrounded by ridiculously smart incredible people
Thank you.
who are going to work at like, yeah, you know, you and John, primarily inspirations, senior. Yeah, like they're going to work at McKinsey, Accenture, Bain and Company,
Right.
work at the investment bankers. And I was like, totally just shut that down and was like, I'm going to work at an ad agency, which also the pay of that is like a third of what I could have gotten at a consulting firm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had a lot of doubts, especially the first 2 to 3 years. Did I take the right path? I always had a dream of working at somewhere like Patagonia. I think what I wanted from that dream isn't what I would have actually gotten, but Patagonia is hiring people from those consulting companies, not, you know,
right,
a creative girl who I swear I'm really smart, but working at an ad agency. Yeah. So I kind of had to take a step back and like, oh man, did I just kind of drop the ball on that? I've done something different and maybe I didn't take the right path. And I think that's why this opportunity to go to Australia and work and get just a totally different international experience on international brands was such a blessing, because it kind of made me realize, it took me out of that, you know, funnel that everyone's in. Not everyone, but the people I was surrounded by, of you should get this corporate job, and not saying it's bad. There's a lot of amazing perks that come with that and huge opportunities that I'm going to have to go a totally different way and like start my own business to get those. But it kind of took me out of that mindset of everybody has to be on this path, and everyone who's smart and went to business school should have done XYZ and done this corporate path. Like I went and did this totally different path and met all these people who are in the positions that I want to be in, who took these entrepreneurial paths or followed something that made sense to them at the time. And so I'm definitely grateful that it's kind of worked out and I'm getting to live this entrepreneurial life, which I think is what I've wanted out of a career for so long, and that it's been successful so far. But there was just definitely the doubts of not being surrounded by anyone else doing that at the time. But now I'm seeing a lot of our they weren't colleagues, fellow students.
So professional.
Yeah, colleagues. But yeah, they're going out. Like I'll randomly be on LinkedIn and someone out in one of my classes back in school, and they're working for some 3-person startup. And
yep.
I think the way the world's changing, like freelancing is becoming way more common. There's so many opportunities to get in with a startup or, start your own thing, even if it's a side project. So it's fun to see everyone kind of getting more confidence to do that, and it's becoming more common. So I think that's only going to increase.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really fun to see how people evolve and develop their skills and decide to get into different industries. Even just a few years out of college, there's a lot of change that happens. So
oh my gosh,
that stuff's really fun. The freelancing part and starting your own business, kind of being your own boss, what comes with that, a big thing that comes with that often is the ability to travel and work wherever you want, which you've clearly taken advantage of and you love. What is your favorite part of traveling the world and your experience living in different countries?
Ooh, besides it be usually going to really warm places and having access to surfing, I think it's also just cool to take yourself out of the box of wherever, if you work in New York or Chicago or wherever you're from and you have your routine, you can have this great routine somewhere on the other side of the world, and you're just going to meet people that will blow your mind with what they do and what they've accomplished on the road. So when I go on like my little remote working trips, I might be going for like 3 months or something, but I meet people, most of the people I meet, 60, 70% of them are doing this full time, and they've been traveling the world for 2 to 3 years. So just meeting them and learning from them and all their crazy stories and all their insight on being a remote worker and all the places they've worked from is so cool to come home and have all these friends and still see them doing all these cool things around the world, and then seeing like, oh, hey, they had a good time working from Chiang Mai, Thailand. Like maybe I'll go check that out.
Right. Yeah. Thailand's on my bucket list. I got to get there next. How has international travel changed the way you think? Humble brag. I studied abroad for a semester in London, which was I guess a little bit different than, living all over the world and going back there, but to start a business. But even just in a few short months, it completely blew my mind and rocked my world. And it just really, I joked in previous podcast where I interviewed my dad, our founder. I said that when you travel the world, it really feels like you're adding a layer onto your brain, because it adds these parts of the world that you never had experienced firsthand before. And it really makes you realize that there's this whole world out there, and everything we do in our daily lives, it's a small part of that. And there's so much going on and so many cool places and people to meet and see out there that it's a shame when people kind of stay in the same place their whole lives.
Yeah.
How has international travel changed the way you think about things in general like that?
International travel, I mean, it's such a treat that we've been able to go do that. I think it just totally levels out your mind. So when you're stressed out or you're upset about something in your life happening at home, you can think about, oh, remember that little family in the mountains in Mexico where they like taught you how to make bread like on a Wednesday, or like, just these random things. Or remember when you went bungee jumping in New Zealand on a Friday? I don't know. There's just all these things that are happening. There's always something happening all over the world that it just like warms my heart to like think that, I got to experience some of it, and there's so much I don't know about. And there's also, at the same time, there's a lot of amazing stuff happening and a lot of terrible things happening. So it just gives you perspective on, when you're at home and you're happy or sad about something, that it kind of gives you a step back and gives you that wider view to kind of calm down and chill out.
I totally subscribe to that. Shout out podcast. Let's move to a segment on inspiration and creativity. So here, I'm curious. Obviously, travel is a big inspiration, a big creativity driver for you. How about on the people side? Is there anybody, like any big names, or maybe it's someone close to you, who would you say is your biggest business influence?
Ooh, I really enjoy listening to the NPR How I Built This podcasts, particularly in the food world. I think a lot of the food entrepreneurs are really inspiring because they come from just that place of, I was just making this product that I loved and figured, what the hell, let's sell it and see what happens. So it's kind of that innocent, I'm not doing this for the potential gains and blah, blah, blah. Like food has one of the worst margins of any industry. So it's definitely a labor of love for most, at least a lot of the up and coming food brands. And one that really has always stuck out. Two of them, I actually forget her name, but the founder of Simple Mills, which is like a gluten-free baking company. But I've listened to all the podcasts on her and like read all of her interviews, and everything she does, I think, is just really admirable because she's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen go out there. When she started Simple Mills, which is now a really big gluten-free baking mix company, but they also do like, superfood sprouted crackers and all this stuff. They're definitely like a well-known Whole Foods brand.
Right.
She started when she had a full-time consulting job while she was traveling consulting. So you're not even home 4 days of the week. And then she was making this product. It started out with these baking mixes, and she would sample them all weekend at Whole Foods and like find ways to sample at as many places as possible. And I just find that amazing because that's one of the things I kind of had to take a step back and acknowledge. A lot of your free time is suddenly taken up by this business you decided to start. It's like having a baby where you don't realize, like, you're like, this will be time consuming, but whatever, I'll deal with it, to being like, no, man, this is, buckle up. You're going to be spending a lot of your free time that you rather, be at the gym with your friends or traveling. You're going to be working on your food company. But I just respect her because she's worked so hard and come from, like, everything she seems to do comes genuinely and from a good place. And then also Amanda Chantal Bacon, she's the founder of Moon Juice, which is this really kind of out there adaptogenic protein powder company. But they're really popular. They kind of use different blends of mushrooms and make them into powder, not magic mushrooms. But if you look at their website, you would think they are. And you mix them in your smoothies, yogurt, top them on you make teas out of them, and they're supposed to have all these mental benefits. Yeah, I think what she does, they have like a really interesting brand story, and everything's super genuine. And you can tell from the founder, Amanda, the brand is her. And I kind of feel like that with Lil Bucks. Like I want, this is like me, the brand that I'm building is kind of Emily in a way.
Yeah, I think it's definitely Emily.
Yeah.
So the founder of Simple Mills and then Amanda that you mentioned, did you actively, like, do you go into iTunes and search their name and find these podcasts, or how did you? It's really cool now these days that you can find podcasts and basically can see all the interviews that all these founders and amazing people did.
Yeah, and I'm kind of late to the game on the podcasting world.
You realize the irony. You realize the irony in this interview now, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is super hip. Yeah, I think it was around when I decided that, okay, I want to start Lil Bucks, and discovered, I can just listen to podcasts on my commute, that you get to learn from all these crazy entrepreneur stories. And
right.
Before I launched on Amazon, I was obsessively listening to all the Amazon podcasts, which is so much out there. But yeah, I started listening to like a food startups podcast and discovered I already liked these brands, but just didn't know the whole story. And then just kind of become obsessed and stalk them and find out everything about them and try to be like them.
Exactly. Yeah. But you can be you better than anyone can be you. So
yeah, for sure. Taking their learnings and how they've done their own thing and do it for my own.
Right. You got that. Well, it must be surreal then being on a podcast after just discovering them. I mean, I hadn't discovered them too long ago myself, but I obviously quickly fell in love with podcasts. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So here we are.
Like every time I'm working, and yeah, I've been listening to a bunch of your podcasts and it's so fun.
Thank you.
I really like the Professor Ann one.
Yeah. Ann. Yeah. She's awesome. She's a rock star.
That brought me back. She's so cool.
She's a rock star. How about, you mentioned surfing, obviously, Reggie Rocket here. What other hobbies, are you into? What are you into in your free time? Not that you have any.
Yeah. Well, I do. And I mean, it is really important to me because when I launched Lil Bucks, I definitely did not have any free time. And even my boyfriend was like, I can't see you like this, like waking up at 6 and going to bed at 1. And literally just the second I wake up, work, and then pass out. And I mean, it wasn't sustainable. That lasted like 3 months. And yes, I got a lot done and made a lot of money, and that's great, but that's not going to work. I mean, by July, I was completely burnt out and was like, all right, I need to make sure that I'm getting those flow activities into my life. Flow kind of being the activities that kind of turn your brain off and allow you to be creative, where you're not thinking about your to-do list or the dramas in your life, and you're just doing and being.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a lot of people, that's yoga, which I enjoy doing for health reasons, and it's nice. But for some reason, I haven't gotten to the point where I can totally turn my mind off. So I do like my favorite things to do, which is hard being in Chicago because I love surfing and snowboarding, which is also not a Chicago thing.
I could see you going down Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would if I could. And I do. There is Lake Michigan's like winter surfing, which I'm trying to find someone to.
Oh, wow.
Get me in the scene. It's like extreme. You wear extreme wetsuits, and
I would imagine you wear like 7 wetsuits to make up.
Yeah, there's all these pictures of guys going with like icicles on their beards.
Oh, I've seen some of those before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was Chicago or just cold in general, but
just crazy people.
That's great. So your hair is going to be completely frozen, huh?
Exactly. So that could be interesting. But I did join a climbing gym here in Chicago, and that's been really exciting because I've kind of found that adventure activity that takes my mind out of everything else. And I just love something that connects me with the outdoors, even if it's an indoor climbing gym that's preparing me for outdoor climbing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been really great. And then also just working out. I love being active and staying fit. 'Cause I like the idea of if at any moment someone picked me up and dropped me on the mountain with a snowboard, I'd be in peak shape to shred. Yeah.
Shred your heart out.
And then also just trying new recipes and health. I love finding healthy versions of unhealthy things. So like I make this raw fudge using Lil Bucks, and it's like a healthy crunch bar, and it's literally so tasty. So just discovering cool recipes like that, which I hadn't done since launching a lot because I've been so busy. But the past couple months, I've started doing it again, and it's really cool because that's also a good way to connect with customers. It's like, oh, I tried this thing with my product. But on top of that, it's just nice for my own personal life. So I've started doing that again.
That's an amazing thing to do. I never thought of that before. Obviously, the health trend is increasing in the US, which is a great thing. But I had never thought that for every unhealthy food out there, there can be a healthy alternative. And so that's really cool that you seek that out. And I know you have so many really cool recipes listed on your website, which is great. So you're doing a great thing for the junk food. Well, the junk food world won't like you, but that's okay.
I know, I'm trying to. It's funny when I'm doing sampling events or festivals and people who are like me and like the health and wellness world already like run up and they're like, cool, I want to try this. And it's a big one when I get the skeptical people that are like, this seems disgusting, but fine, I'll try it to be nice. And then when I get them excited about it, I'm like, all right, that's a big win.
Yeah, if you can change that thinking. Okay, so let's go to a fan favorite section, you included, of the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week!
Awesome.
Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. This is where we highlight a marketing campaign, advertising, or any brand that caught our attention doing something really, really fun and innovative, and we chat about it for a little bit. So, Emily, what would you like to highlight in this edition of the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week?
The brand I would like to highlight is an easy answer for me, and I can't really think of anything else just because I've been obsessing over this particular campaign and trying to replicate parts of it that I liked for Lil Bucks. And it's a totally digital campaign, so it's probably one not a lot of people have seen, but it's for Verb energy bars, VERB, and they're these, it's a new food startup. I think they've had like a lot of, investment and all that, but
Right.
Still relatively new. But they're these little 90-calorie energy bars and they actually taste good, and they have the amount of caffeine that's in a shot of espresso.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's like a sustained energy, comes from green tea, blah, blah, blah. And I, of course, hadn't heard of them, but I just was so impressed by the way they captured me as a customer personally. Now I want to replicate that for Lil Bucks. But essentially it started with, and I'm in digital marketing, and you probably appreciate this as well as a digital person. Loved the ease of this experience. But I was on Instagram, Instagram story ad comes through. They're like, try 3 of these bars for free, just pay like $3 for shipping. And you check out right there while you're still on the Instagram app. Boom, they send me, and it's like a perfect checkout experience. Oh, and then the interesting thing is, so they send you the free bars, and instead of emailing you after, like, what do you think of the bars, blah, 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 they say in the checkout, we're going to text you and ask you what you think and enroll you into our subscription program, which you can cancel at any time. So they texted me and like, what do you think? Do you want to enroll in the subscription program? And it's all from text. And they text you, and it's someone from their actual team texting you. Hey, do you want to enroll in the subscription program for 12 cacao bars? And I was like, no, like I'll do 12 blueberry. And then they follow up with you automatically each month. They're like, okay, you're ready for another refill. Do you want it this month, or do you want to pause it or change it? They texted me a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, maybe wait 3 weeks. I'm still have a bunch of my bars. It's just so customizable and personal. And I haven't totally figured out if they're using a custom system for their personal texting, but I think it's really interesting just using the direct message personal relationships to manage the whole process.
Oh, yeah.
Text messages are almost always open. Like they always say email is the most engaging thing. And I do a lot of email marketing in my freelance work. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, email engagement rates are way higher than social, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, text, everyone's opening their text, even if it's to not respond. Like,
right.
That's just such a personal way to get in touch with people. And how do you do it in a way that's scalable? Ultimately, I think that, they've obviously had some investment and have more money to make the system work at a scalable level, and I don't. So holding off on that. But also another big company, Dirty Lemons, managing all their orders through text, they've kind of been praised in the food and beverage world. It's a really hot brand, and everything's managed via text. So I think that's something I've been kind of keeping my eye out for. Because it totally works.
They're almost as hot as magnesium.
Yeah, almost as cool as they probably have like a magnesium dirty lemon drink. But
the consistent thing in those two brands is the personal touch, which is becoming ever more important just with so much more digital clutter and advertising clutter out there these days. So I think that's a great point. Also, it's proof that Instagram story ads do work, everyone, because you purchased off of them. So
I actually just launched based off like studying their marketing funnel of that and a few others. I've launched my own Instagram story ads last night. So we'll see.
Exciting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're good. Well, that's where obviously everybody kind of shifted from Snapchat stories to Instagram stories.
I know, it's funny. I remember when I was at my agency, I did a big presentation on Snapchat and everyone was advertising with Snapchat. It was this incredible opportunity, and now it's totally Instagram.
It's so crowded. What was it about that first ad, the Verb ad? What was it about it that caught your attention in that story ad?
I think it was an immediate telling you what the value proposition is and the ease of the experience. So that's why I've taken a while to launch my own. Like, I could have launched these ads right when I launched the brand, but I didn't want the money to go down the drain, especially being a single member startup.
Right.
It's like, this needs to tell you right away why you want these, and they're free to try so that you're intrigued. And then the ease of checking out, like easiest possible experience. I just loved about Verb. I study a lot of brands in this space and what they're doing and take a lot of things I like from what I've learned from them. But Verb just seems to, from the start to finish, have nailed it. So I think they're going to do really well. We'll see though.
Cool. Yeah. Well, and I love their name too. Very active. It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
How about from the texting experience? Because it's sort of a new frontier, and I'm sure people are split on whether they want to get text from brands or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was your experience receiving those texts, knowing they're from a brand, not, one of your friends or not from your mom, yelling at you or.
Yeah. It was cool. It was like, I was kind of, Verb is texting me, but they say, and they reiterate this on the website, that it's one of their founders texting you. And it does honestly sound like it is a normal person. Like, you can tell nothing's automated.
Wow.
You're like, it's just this person taking care of me. And it's kind of cool. I kind of felt like a badass. Like, like, it's just so easy. But I could see when I was thinking about doing it myself, I'm like, what if I text someone, especially like maybe not the millennial generation, and they're like, what? How did you get my number? Like,
right. Yep.
Go away. Kind of, or being creeped out.
The fact that you felt like it was their CEO or someone on their staff texting you as opposed to an automated system, I think makes all the difference. So that's going to be the challenge area for these, huge brands that have like demand is off the charts for, which Lil Bucks should be soon.
Exactly. Working on that.
But for all, like, it makes you think, like, are there going to be new job titles that are texter, like marketing texter? Like, what's it going to?
Probably like texting copywriters.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. I even went to a session with the Dirty Lemon COO, but they're spending tons. So all of their orders are managed via text, and they have this own custom system that they've built. And they have bots that are extremely advanced, and they're always tweaking and refining it to sound like a real on-brand human, but automatically respond to, because they're dealing with extremely high volumes of orders. Like, they've already kind of made it as a national brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it can't be scalable as just like,
right,
people that know the tone of voice and exactly what to say texting. So they have a bot that they're refining to automatically respond to all of these different text. Like, here's a picture of my dog. What does the bot say? So it's just,
right, exactly.
you know, like so many levels of customization. I was like, wow, it's really cool, but I'm probably not ready for that.
Yeah, it's a big it's a big hurdle there, but it could be a monster. So the people that can text the fastest and understand people's dog pictures are probably going to be most in demand in the workforce.
Yeah, most valuable players.
MVP, most valuable texters, MVT.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up here with some rapid fire Q&A. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. That was a little hesitation there. So,
yeah.
We'll see. We'll make it happen. Cool. All right. What is your favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Ooh, that's so hard, but probably Australia because I'm obsessed with it and I keep going back there.
How about city in Australia?
Sydney.
Ah.
Yeah, it's just magical, beautiful. Love the beaches. Love my friends there. The design there is a lot of Lil Bucks design is inspired from it. It's where I learned to surf. I think it's like where I like really came into my own. So there's a lot of places where I've had, you know, more crazy cultural experiences. Mm-hmm. But it's just a special place in my heart.
What's your favorite surf spot? Is there a specific spot you can point to?
Ooh, for a while it was Bondi Beach in Sydney because that's the only place I'd surfed because that's where I learned to surf and I was scared to surf anywhere else because I got to know Bondi's break so well. But now it's probably this break in Encinitas, California, which is a little north of San Diego, at a break called Beacons. It's just like super easy, nice longboard waves, which is kind of the level I'm at now. So it's just really fun, but there's also some bigger ones to challenge you a bit. But actually, the last time I was there, someone got bit by a shark 3 hours after like I was in the water, so it's kind of scary.
Oh, wow.
But he lived, and he was like a scuba diver, not even a scuba diver. He was free diving with his friends and got like totally bit by an 11-foot shark. But he was like totally fine, you know, after surgery and all that. But he's like, can't wait to go diving again. So.
Wow. That's great.
It was pretty crazy though. We were literally just surfing in there, and yeah, me and my friends were shaken up. We were like, oh, and then one of my friends and I still went surfing like an hour out at a different break, which is one of the risks it's humbling. The ocean is powerful, and this is something that can happen. It rarely happens. Like, I think you're more likely to get like eaten by a crocodile than bit by a shark, but it happens.
But you've done both. But what?
Heck no.
Not that you're a badass, but as a badass, what is your favorite sport other than surfing?
Ooh, soccer. I grew up playing soccer, and I've kind of come back to it. I didn't play it a lot in college, which was funny because I was afraid of tearing my ACL because a lot of people I knew tore theirs.
Oh, yeah.
And I was also got really involved in the wakeboard team. So I was wakeboarding and, playing in the water and thought that was really fun. But I just got back to playing soccer recently, and it's just like the best workout ever. I love that it's like an international sport. Like when I was in Mexico, like you can pick up with like some little kids and teach them to play even if you can't speak the same language.
Right, yeah.
And I think it's the best. I'm not a huge football fan, American football fan, which is...
Thank you for the qualifier.
Yeah.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, when people don't respect each other's time. I really appreciate when someone's like, oh, I'm making this big ask of you and I'm going to acknowledge it. Or, hey, I know you're busy, but I would love to take this time. Not just the people that just like drop stuff on your plate or demand things from you without, really considering the other person involved. And
right.
I think that's what, but even when it's like someone not asking of me, like if I see it happening to someone else, I'm like, oh, well, that's really annoying. Everyone should kind of consider each other as a human being.
That's what a crazy thought that is.
I know. Like, and it's funny. That's like, obviously being able to work remotely and all that stuff, like there's so many benefits of the digital world and being able to get a lot done via Slack and email. Right. But I still like to remember that you're still working with other humans and to respect them.
This is true. Yeah. Unless you're working on Mars, which we're not there yet.
Yeah.
They're close.
Potentially. work from Mars.
All right, last one. Besides, vacationing on Mars from now to, fast forward 10 years. But what is your weirdest talent? Like any random, basically useless talents you have? I can give an example if you want.
Yeah, give me an example.
Like, I can bend my thumb to touch my forearm, which there's no benefit to that, but I can do it.
No, there really isn't. I feel like my random talent is still useful in my mind, but I'm like absurdly good at making acai bowls. Like I barely even like to go to cafes now and get them because I just know mine are going to be better, which is useful, I guess, to me. And
right,
if
yeah.
my boyfriend ever wants one, because I can make really good ones. But I mean, I probably don't need to be that good at making them.
Well, you should be. Yeah, you probably should be good at it since you're in that.
Yeah,
world. Shout out your Instagram. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go. Pound some acai as an appetizer, and then pound some buckwheat.
Yeah, perfect.
But I think that's pretty much a wrap. Emily, thank you so much for coming on the Wild Business Growth Podcast. It's been really cool catching up and a medium that we're both passionate about, and that's getting bigger. So a lot of fun, and really, really appreciate your story. Everyone out there, make sure to go purchase Lil Bucks. Where's the best place for people to purchase? Is it your website or Amazon? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, either's good. You'll get on my website, if you order more than $30, it's free shipping. But obviously, if you're just ordering a couple bags, you can get them on Amazon or my website as well. They'll end up costing pretty much similar price. But yeah, love lilbucks.com. I couldn't get lilbucks.com, so it's love LILBUCKS.com. Then yeah, you can also look for it, Lil Bucks sprouted buckwheat on Amazon. And then hopefully, I'll try to get in Whole Foods in 2019.
Yeah, there we go. Calling the shot. Awesome.
Yeah.
Love the
Shout
name,
out
by the
to
way.
anyone working at Whole Foods.
Our listeners all work at Whole Foods. So
yeah, it turns out, what a fortuitous world.
Fantastic. Okay, and what about you personally and your social media? What's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I really only use Instagram. And so that's EmiGriff, EMIGRIFF. And then my website's emigriff.com, where you can see some of the brands I worked on. And I occasionally post pictures from my travels, although since starting Lil Bucks, that's taken a back seat. But yeah, that's a good way to connect if you have any projects or ideas. I still work with a lot of small, medium businesses, particularly food and travel brands. So that's a good place to find out more.
Bam. There you have it.
Bam.
Last thing here. Stage is yours. What are your final thoughts to send us off with? Surfing into the sunset.
Surfing into the sunset. Well, my final thoughts, first of all, I thank you so much. I'm so humbled and honored to be on this podcast.
Well, of course.
My first time being interviewed for a podcast, and it was really fun.
You're natural.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And yeah, it would probably be, it's so cheesy, but it's my favorite quote. And I think that by listening to this, it's gotten me to places that I'm really happy about. And it's a Rumi quote of respond to every call that ignites your spirits. And that's kind of led me in great directions, both in like the entrepreneurial world and finding ways to make money in a way that I love. And then also just in general, like, oh, I got really excited about climbing and now I go to a climbing gym, and who knows where it leads you when you respond to things that really excite you and don't ignore them.
Well, that is a very exciting quote. Thank you so much, Emily, for the podcast interview and the excitement. Catch you next time because I got to go rock climbing. So peace out.
Yeah, sweet.
Spoiler alert, I did not go rock climbing, but you guys rock, so yeah, I'll see myself out. But seriously, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another edition of the Wild Business Growth Podcast. Thank you, Emily, for taking time out of your crazy startup journey. All you listeners out there, make sure to support Emily's launch and try out Lil Bucks. You just might like them. You know what to do on the Wild Business Growth side. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a few seconds on your phone. Connect with us at Hippo Direct on all your favorite social media platforms, including Instagram, where we do Instagram stories. You can reach me at Max Brandstetter on Twitter and Instagram. Hit me up about any of your podcasting needs. And if you love marketing as much as Emily loves buckwheat, sign up for the Hippo Digest. It's your weekly recap of creative marketing from around the web. It's totally free, and you get it straight to your inbox every single week if you sign up at hippodirect.com/newsletter. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time. Let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!